Okay, next experiment number 10 ma. 10 we have completed, and next this experiment number 11. Okay, experiment number 11. Okay, we can see here. You can see here the aim to study the action of salivary amylase on starch. That is the experiment number 11. To study the action of salivary amylase on starch, that is the aim. And next requirements. Okay, no need of theory and principle. Directly you can go with the requirements. Okay, that is test. Okay, we can see the test tube stand, droppers, breakers, beakers, water bath, wire gauze, funnel, spirit lamp or burner. Okay, like that. Okay, the requirements. And next here we'll have one more heading, that is preparation of reagents. Okay, you have to prepare 1% of starch solution, and next 1% of NaCl solution. Okay. Okay, don't write the third one, Lugol's iodine solution. That is no need. Or no problem, you write it that iodine solution only. Lugol's iodine solution. Okay, right. Okay, starch solution, NaCl solution preparation, and iodine solution preparation. And the fourth one, that is collection of saliva. So all the four you have to write. Preparation of reagents on the right side only. All these aim, requirements, preparation of reagents, all you have to write on the right side only. And next coming to the procedure. Procedure you have to write on the right side. Okay, after procedure. Okay, you have to write a procedure. Up to 8 points. Okay, from the note 9, 10, 11, 12. No need of writing those. Okay, from the note up to 12 points, no need of writing. You have to write only up to 8 points only. Understand? Up to 8 points only you have to write. Okay, no need of writing note 9th point, 10th point, 11th point, and the 12th point. Okay, and next, okay, you will find, okay, one diagram on the corner, right side corner. That one no need. Directly you can draw the diagrams here, the test tubes. These test tubes are there, no? That diagrams you have to draw on the left side. And next, below the diagram, you go with the observation, and below one table is there. That one you have to do it on the left side, this table. So diagrams and observation and the observation table on the left side. After this, okay, you'll go with the result. Result, you have to write only the first point. Achromic point in experimental tube is achieved after 10 minutes. Okay, here dots are given in between. Okay, in the place of dots, you can mention 10 minutes. Why? Because in the observation table, we'll write up to 10 minutes. That's why we can mention 10 minutes in case of dots. In the place of dots, you can mention 10 minutes. Up to that point only you write. Remaining all you leave. No need of writing. Only the first point, achromic point in the experimental tube, is achieved after 10 minutes. Okay, only the first point only you have to write up to this minutes. And next followed by precautions. Okay, now that is so you have to write aim, requirements, preparation of reagents, procedure up to 8 points only you have to write a procedure. Okay, and next followed by result, only the first line up to minutes. And next precautions, these all should be written on the right side page. Okay, now, and next after this, on the left side, you have to draw the diagrams of the test tubes. Here, 2 test tubes are given. All those 2 test tube series you have to write. Draw the diagram. E1 and okay, E1 to E6, C1 to C6. All the diagrams with label, with minutes and all that you have to draw on the left side. After that, below the diagram, you have to go with observation table. Okay, that is experiment number 11. Okay, and next coming to our topic, that is logistic growth. Okay, in the last class we have discussed about exponential growth. We have discussed about exponential growth. Okay, the exponential growth occurs when the resources are unlimited and there are no restraints. That means no, okay, no opposing factors. Okay, and in that case, the growth occurs in the form of a unlimited manner. So it represents like a J shape. When you plot a graph showing the exponential growth, it represents like a J shape. So the population for a J-shaped growth curve is calculated by using a formula dn by dt is equal to dn plus rt. That is the basic formula, where r is the intrinsic growth rate in a particular period of time. Okay, when you observe this logistic growth, okay, what is meant by this logistic growth? Okay, here it is given very clearly. No population of any species in nature has at its disposal unlimited resources to permit exponential growth. That means exponential growth usually does not occur in nature. No population of any species in nature has at its disposal unlimited resources. That means no organism will be provided with unlimited resources. Okay, to promote exponential growth. Okay, this because this leads to competition between individuals for limited resources, because in the nature the resources are limited. The resources are limited. Okay, because as the resources are limited, some competition will develop between the individuals of a species. So eventually the fittest individual will survive and reproduce. Okay, eventually the fittest individual will survive and reproduce. Okay, that's why, okay, when you observe, okay, you might have observed the Animal Planets or National Geographic Channel. Okay, we'll find some herd of animals. Okay, and in that the males, okay, we'll see some males were fighting. They will fight. Okay, the fighting will be very hard. Okay, and in that only one organism will be surviving, the strongest one, the fittest one, and that one only will transfer its genetic material to the next generation to produce the strongest organism further. So that is so the eventually that means a competition will develop. As a result, the fittest individual will survive and reproduce. That means those are best adapted to that environment, those only will survive, and those only can participate in reproduction and produce the progeny. The governments of many countries have also realized this fact and introduced various restraints with a view to limit human population growth. Okay, that means, for example, we can see here now, okay, those people who are having a small family, those will be given some additional benefits. Okay, so that they can restrain the growth of population. Okay, that is introduced various restraints with a view to limit human population growth. In nature, a given habitat has enough resources to support a maximum possible number. Okay, that means in the nature we'll find certain resources. Okay, but that resources will be afford to certain number only. That means that maximum number. Okay, there is some maximum number. The resources will be sufficient to a certain number, to that maximum possible number, beyond which no further growth is possible. That means that nature is okay, that environment is not supporting beyond that number. So what is that number called? Let us call this limit as a nature's carrying capacity, which is denoted by the letter capital K for that species in that habitat. That means the maximum number, the maximum possible number an ecosystem can bear or can able to withstand or can support that resources that are present in that ecosystem, that maximum number, we are calling it as a carrying capacity of that environment or of that ecosystem, which is denoted by the letter capital K for that species in that habitat. Okay, so a population growing in a habitat with limited resources show initially a lag phase. That is a logistic growth. That means because the resources are more, but the population is less. So what happens? The population will grow faster. So initially it shows a lag phase, followed by the phases of acceleration. That is a rapid increase in the population and declaration. Okay, declaration, and finally an asymptote. That means finally reaches to a particular point from where there is no further increase in the population. Okay, when this asymptote is obtained means when the population density reaches the carrying capacity. Okay, a plot of n, that is the population density in relation to time t, results in a sigmoid curve. So when you plot a graph, when the resources are limited in a nature, and okay, and if you plot a graph showing the growth of that population in that nature, okay, then the curve will looks like a sigmoid curve, that is a S-shaped curve. Okay, this type of population growth is called Van Halsted logistic growth. That means, okay, the logistic growth curve is also called as a Van Halsted logistic growth. Okay, or sigmoid curve, and is described by the following equation: dn by dt is equal to Rn into k minus n by k. Here, the n represents population density at a time t, that is the initial population, and R is the intrinsic rate of natural increase, that is birth minus death, birth rate minus death rate, and K, the capital K represents the carrying capacity, the maximum population it can hold. So when you observe this graph, we can see here in this, okay, yesterday we have gone with the one graph, that is the red color line. This graph is representing the J shaped, which represents the exponential growth. But when you observe, there is another graph here given with blue color. Okay, here we can see another graph, the blue color line. Okay, what this blue color line representing means, it is in the shape of, yes, you can see, that is the sigmoid curve, that is commonly called as Van Halsted logistic growth. Here we can see here, initially shows the lag phase, and finally, okay, in the middle we can see the rapid increase, acceleration, and we can see here a little bit decrease, that is a declaration, and finally the stability in the population. That means here the stability is because it reached the carrying capacity, that is the maximum population that ecosystem can hold, that is the carrying capacity. This dotted line, okay, the population density is representing the k value, that is carrying capacity. So to understand the density of that population at that particular period of time, okay, there is a formula given, that is dn by dt is equal to Rn into k minus n by k, k minus n by k. That is the curve we are seeing here. Okay, it is representing the logistic growth. Sorry, logistic growth. Okay, understood now. So here the n represents the population density at the time t, and R representing the intrinsic rate of natural increase, and K representing the carrying capacity. So that's why, okay, that means since resources for growth for most animal populations are finite, finite means limited, and becomes limiting sooner or later. So the logistic growth model is considered as a more realistic one. Okay, that means usually the exponential growth is usually not observed in the nature. It is not considered as a realistic growth curve. Okay, which is considered as the realistic growth curve means the logistic growth model is considered as the realistic one, because in the nature the resources are limited, and there are some restraints for all the species that are present on the earth. Okay, that's why we are saying okay, this growth model as the realistic one. Okay, we can see here, gather from government census data the population figures for India for last 100 years, plot them and check which growth pattern is evident. Okay, here the human population in India especially, it is showing the J-shaped exponential growth. Okay, human population is showing exponential growth because we don't have that much restraints. Okay, even though the resources are limited and there are some restraints in okay, but still showing law, okay, exponential growth in human. Okay, that is about the logistic growth. Very important, man. This growth models, both, okay, exponential growth model and a logistic growth model, both are very important. Regularly asking questions from this model, okay, from this growth models, either in 3 mark or 5 mark from this chapter. This is two are very important. Okay, once you check the previous year questions, if you have got, definitely one question should be there, okay, will be there, okay, related to this topic. Okay, related to this population attributes. Okay, and next coming to life history variation. Okay, that is, and next different organisms are showing a different adaptations or adaptations to maximize their population. Every organism try to increase their population at its best. There is so that's what, how they are able to maintain that. Populations evolve to maximize their reproductive fitness, also called Darwinian fitness. High R value, that is intrinsic growth in the habitat in which they live. That means in wherever they are living, whatever the environment in which that organism is living, they try to increase their number at its maximum. So when you observe here, under a particular set of selection pressures, organisms evolve towards the most efficient reproductive strategy. Okay, so even there are some restraints, okay, to reduce the population of that organism, but still the organisms are developing different strategies, different reproductive strategies to produce a large number of population or to increase their population. Okay, as already we have studied, some organisms breed only once in their lifetime. That means once they breed, they die. For example, the Pacific salmon fish. The Pacific salmon fish. Okay, we can see the bamboo plant. Okay, in all these, they'll breed only once in their life. After breeding, they usually die. Here, the breeding means refers to sexual reproduction.
Scorpion, sir.
Huh?
Scorpion.
Don't understand again. Come in. Repeat, Emma.
Scorpion, sir.
Scorpion, no ma. Scorpion will feed. Okay, will breed ma so many times. No problem. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Pacific salmon fish and bamboo. Okay, These are some of the examples, while other breeds many times during their lifetime. For example, birds and mammals. Birds lay eggs repeatedly. Mammals will give birth to young ones repeatedly. Okay, only a few are exceptions which will breed only once in their life. For example, even if you take rice, wheat, that is okay, those plants which will complete their life cycle in one season, they breed only once. Okay, so and some will breed many times, like birds which will lay eggs so many times in their lifetime, and mammals they will give birth to young ones so many times in their lifetime, and some produce a large number of small sized offsprings. Okay, and some organisms, okay, mostly if the organism is larger in size, usually they produce few organisms. But if the organism is smaller in size, usually they used to produce a large number of offsprings. Okay, that is small sized offsprings like oysters, and next to some fishes, pelagic fishes, while others produce a small number of large sized offsprings, some birds and mammals at a time. At a time, they produce usually, okay, generally the bird usually will produce only one egg at a time, but for a period of time, they produce eggs and later they undergo hatching. Understand? But at a time, they produce only one egg, but they will produce a series of eggs and later they undergo hatching, like 10 to okay 10 to 12 or 12 to 15. Some will produce one or two eggs, some will produce four or five eggs, and they undergo hatching. Okay, so that is so some will produce small number but large sized, so which is desirable for maximizing fitness. So that means different organisms are following different strategies to maximize their population. Okay, so ecologists suggest that life history traits of organisms have evolved in relation to the constraints imposed by the abiotic and biotic components of the habitat in which they live. So that means why these organisms are adopting to different strategies mean because, okay, a large number of constraints, that means some oppositions, that means the environment is opposing in the form of abiotic and biotic, okay, to reduce its population. Okay, that is so evolution of life history traits in different species is currently an important area of research being conducted by ecologists. So that means so as the organisms are trying to adapt to the change in the environmental conditions. So if okay, the scientists are working how these traits means here characters, the characters that are exhibited by the organism of okay different organisms are helping the organism to survive better in that environment. So the research is going on by the ecologists. So how the organisms are able to survive? Okay, that is there are some interactions. Interactions may be with the biotic and abiotic. Already we discussed about the abiotic factors, how the organisms are interacting with the abiotic factors and how they are adapted, that one. And here we'll discuss about interactions among the biotic factors in a habitat. So can you think of any natural habitat on Earth that is inhabited just by a single species? Okay, that means, can you say any area where only one type of species is present? No. We'll find two or more number of species. Two or more number of species at least present in a particular habitat. There is no such habitat, and such a situation is even inconceivable. That means that is not even possible. Okay, there is a presence of only one species in one habitat. That is not even possible. So for any species, the minimal requirement is one more species on which it can feed. So every species needs to live along with at least one more species on which it can feed. Okay, even a plant species which makes its own food cannot survive alone. It needs soil microbes to break down the organic matter in soil and return the inorganic nutrients for absorption. So for decomposition purpose, the organisms need, okay, that means the plants need even some microorganisms for decomposition, so that whatever the organic matter can be converted into inorganic nutrients, which are made again back to the plants. So it is obvious that in nature, animals, plants, and microbes do not and cannot live in isolation, but interact in various ways to form a biological community. Okay, it is obvious that in nature, animals, plants, and microbes do not and cannot live in isolation, but interact in various ways to form a biological community. Even in minimal communities, many interactive linkages exist, although all may not be readily apparent. That means not clearly understood. That means some interactions we don't know clearly, but still some linkage, some interactive linkage is existing between different organisms that are present in the habitat. So that means here we'll discuss about the interactions between different species. That is what we call the interspecific interactions. Okay, the interaction between different species, in an habitat, we are calling it as interspecific interactions. So interspecific, inter means in between, specific, that means species. Interspecific interactions arise from the interaction of populations of two different species. Okay, that means the two different species. Okay, if the interaction is present at least between two different species, then that is called interspecific interaction. Okay, that is okay, and these interactions may be of different types. They could be beneficial, okay, beneficial to both the species, detrimental, that means one will be benefited and other will be lost or undergoes death, that is a detrimental, or neutral, that means okay, both may not be benefited, there is neither harm nor benefited to one of the species or both. So they could be beneficial to both the partners, or beneficial to only one partner, that is a detrimental, or it is a benefit, okay, neither benefited nor harmed, that is neutral to one of the species or both. So here, okay, in an interaction, okay, we are assigning a plus sign for beneficial interaction, that is a positive sign for beneficial interaction, and a negative sign for a detrimental, and 0 for a neutral interaction, that is neither harm nor benefit. So let us look at all the possible outcomes of interspecific interactions. Okay, here we can see there are two species, so it is mentioned like species A and species B. So type of interaction and how they are getting benefited, or neither benefited nor harmed, or one is benefited or one, that is given in the form of symbols, signs like positive and negative and 0, that is neutral. So when you observe here, the first interaction, we are calling it as a mutualism. Okay, there are different types of interactions like mutualism, competition, predation, parasitism, commensalism, amensalism. Okay, and how they're interacted means, for example, if we take mutualism, we'll have both the species